Welcome to Kitchen Conversations. I'm so glad you've joined us today, and today is a very special day. I don't know if you've heard on my past shows that we've talked about how many people have diabetes, how many more people are getting diabetes, and I, quite frankly, am worried about it. I'm worried about it because it's happening in my own family. I've had a brother-in-law having problems. One of my dearest friend's husband is called pre-diabetic, and all of these words tend to confuse me, and I'm sure they confuse you as well. So today I've invited a really special guest, Lynette Ravinius. She's a diabetes education specialist, registered nurse, to join me and share with us a little bit about diabetes, how can I live with it, and how particularly can I support a loved one with a diagnosis. It's not my diagnosis, so I don't get to take care of it. I don't get to take charge of it. How do I live with them? So, Lynette, basically in a nutshell, what is diabetes?
Well, diabetes, of course, the little organ in our body behind the stomach called the pancreas, that's where insulin is made. And we all need insulin in order to survive. So, the most common type of diabetes, type 2 diabetes, it's where there's often some insulin being produced there, but there's more problems at the cell level, and the insulin can't work well to get the sugar out of the blood and into the cells of the body.
So our body actually needs some sugar. It's the fuel of life that keeps us moving. And I remember the insulin, as I remember being taught a long time ago, was kind of like the little key that turned the lock so that the sugar could leave the blood and move into the cell where the cell used it to do its jobs.
Right.
So in type 2, the insulin's not as good anymore?
It's just a lot of times when people are overweight especially, they have what we call insulin resistance. And that insulin resistance somehow physiologically keeps that insulin from doing its job properly.
So either I'm not making enough, it can't do its job well enough, so I have what's called diabetes. Now, how would I know if I have diabetes?
Well, the way we diagnose diabetes now, there's three main ways. Either a fasting blood sugar greater than or equal to 126.
Now, fasting means I haven't been eating. I've been going without food all night.
For at least 8 hours.
Okay.
Right.
And now they're going to draw my blood, and now my levels are over 126.
Right.
Not good.
Not good.
Okay?
We would want to check that one more time,
So
especially if you don't have symptoms of diabetes.
So blood sugar high, what else?
You can have a random blood sugar, which means, you know, irregardless.
I just walked in and said, go ahead, stick me and see what it is.
I've eaten any blood sugar greater than or equal to 200 is also another way to diagnose diabetes. Recently, they have decided that we can also diagnose diabetes based on a blood test called the A1C.
I've heard of A1C before, and that's a little more accurate, we think?
We use that more now than we didn't used to use it to diagnose diabetes.
Right.
But research has shown that that is actually a good way. And if the A1C is greater than 6.5%, then that is diagnostic for diabetes.
So now, the other day my girlfriend called and she said, oh, you know, George was they just said he has pre-diabetes. What does that mean?
Well, that's another category. We don't use the term borderline diabetes anymore. It's kind of gone by the wayside, but we use the word pre-diabetes. And that means a fasting blood sugar between 100 and 125.
So I mean I'm a little borderline. Now you said this has to accompany other symptoms.
Yeah,
what kind of other symptoms would I just be feeling that I go, I don't think something's not right, and maybe I should go see my doctor and ask some questions? What kind of things would I be feeling, or my loved one?
Well, you might be more thirsty. You might be urinating more often. A lot of people, especially with type 2 diabetes, they just feel really tired. They have no energy.
I'm appreciating that you're saying this because I had an experience in my life, and I am not diabetic, but I had a similar experience, and it was because of hyperparathyroidism. But I remember that tiredness, and I did drink a lot of water, and I ran to the bathroom a lot, and I kept saying to myself, if I didn't know self better, I'd say I was diabetic. And I felt that extreme listlessness. But I don't think I'd have ever gone to the doctor and said, I just have no energy left. I'm just listless.
Yeah.
It seems like an odd thing to go to a doctor for, but we should not feel that way, should we?
No, no. If you have those 3 symptoms, you be sure and see a doctor and have your blood sugar checked.
So I get my blood sugar checked. They check it a couple times. They make sure that I have this thing called diabetes. What kind of things are they going to treat me with or tell me I need to do?
Well, of course, changing your diet.
So diet is number 1.
Yes,
And
that makes
now-
a big difference.
And now I'm the wife or the mother or the daughter of the person who's just been diagnosed. How's that going to make me feel? How am I going to cope? I'm the cook.
Oh, it is tough because, especially I have found in my experience in working with people with diabetes, you know, this adult couple comes in and the husband.
So a husband and wife are coming in together.
Yeah, they're coming in. He's been diagnosed with diabetes, and it's so funny almost. The wife sits down and she'll say, could you tell him he can't have ice cream anymore?
Oh, so you're supposed to be the bad person.
Yeah,
You're now the mother telling her what to eat.
And I just realized, I know as a wife myself, it is very difficult not to nag when you see a loved one eating foods they shouldn't eat, especially if they have diabetes.
So now suddenly you feel like you're thrown in that role of being the food police.
Right.
Oh, that's not so much fun, is it?
No.
So it is a really big problem in the United States.
It is.
So we need to recognize that we are somewhat, as the cooks of the household, somewhat in charge of the food, if we are the cook. I mean,
Right.
This is my mother, and she goes out and buys what she wants. I don't, it's kind of hard.
Yeah, it's one thing I tell people who have a loved one with diabetes is don't nag, but ask, what can I do to be a support to you? How can I help you? You may think that doing such and such is going to help them, you know, control their diabetes, and they may have totally different ideas. So let them tell you how you can help them.
All right, so I can find out, here you are, Mom, how can I help you? What can I do for you? Where would you like me to be involved in this? And does that seem to work for some couples?
It does. It's when you ask that question, it's kind of giving you permission then, after they tell you what you can do to help them, to go ahead and, you know, help them in that way.
And be supportive of that.
Right.
That sounds really good. I know that it must be difficult, and I know that my girlfriend that I just mentioned, whose husband is pre-diabetic, tries real hard to help him with his lunches, but he still packs his own lunches. And I think he's packing some things in there that I'd go, you know, and yet you've got to let people make some choices about their own life, don't you?
When I counsel couples, and let's say the husband has diabetes, I say to the wife, it's not going to do you any good to nag. And I look at the husband and I say, nothing's going to change until you decide you want to make a change. The sad thing is that a lot of times family members are not motivated to make a change until they have some type of complication from their diabetes. And
Yeah,
then
'cause
they
for-
get motivated.
Because for a while, everything looks good. Somebody described this to me one time. I was talking to them about teaching diabetes, and it made such earthly sense to me. This nurse said, this is how I describe what diabetes is to somebody else. I said, you know, sugar is crystals. And crystals have points. Whenever
Right.
you have a little crystal, a really nice, pretty little crystal, the reason it's a crystal is because the light goes through it and there's really pretty points. Well, sugar makes little crystals. You can leave it out on your counter and there it is, crystallized up, right? So she said, imagine and she had a clear drinking glass, which I don't have here. I wish I did today. But she said, imagine grinding up a glass. Clear, glass crystals. Pouring that in the cup, adding orange juice or sugar, or orange juice or milk, or whatever you want to drink, and simply drinking those crystals. And just imagine what all that little pieces of glass would do in your body. It would go. It would go around into your little tiny blood vessels and go and cut on your eyes and go and cut in your kidneys and go
Exactly.
and cut at the end of your toes. For a long time, our bodies somehow are able to accommodate the levels of higher blood sugars.
Right.
But ultimately, then it doesn't. And then what happens to people?
Well, we know without a shadow of a doubt, it's not diabetes per se that causes the complications. It's uncontrolled diabetes. And over time, those high blood sugars wreak havoc with blood vessels. They wreak havoc with nerves, especially in the feet.
So what do they do down on your nerves? What happens to your feet?
Well, some people get so much what we call peripheral neuropathy in their feet.
Peripheral means on the edge, and neuropathy has to do with nerves. So what is it? They don't feel things?
They don't feel things.
So they walk around on numb feet?
They can put their shoe on. There may be a bobby pin or a tack in there, some child's toy, their grandchild has dropped something in there. They can actually slip their foot in that shoe and walk on it and not even realize it.
And then when that happens, that's when they start getting sores on their feet, and they don't heal well because the circulating blood's not very good.
Right.
I mean, it's not very rich with all the oxygen and everything they need, and it takes forever to heal.
And when your blood sugars are high, your white blood cells in your body can't work well to fight off infection. Your blood flow isn't as good, and so it just gets compounded.
So it gets much worse. And then, as on other shows, we've talked about the fact that you have a greater risk, much greater risk of stroke. Much greater risk. In fact, one of my other guests said that the leading cause of death from heart disease, the leading complication, is diabetes.
Right.
So it just kind of wrecks everything.
Right.
So then it behooves me, as the homemaker and the cook, to do this a little better.
Yes.
Well, where could I go to learn more about diabetes? I'm really concerned now. I love my husband. I'd like to keep him on the planet a few extra years. What could I do?
Well, go with them to the doctor's appointments.
That's
Ask questions of the doctor. Ask to, well, hopefully your family member will ask, your husband or whoever you're supporting will ask if they can go to a diabetes education class.
So tell me what happens in a diabetes education class.
Well, we teach all about the basics of how it gets started.
So what the disease is.
We teach how to change their eating habits.
Okay.
And we're not as strict as we used to be. You know, if they want to have a little treat once in a while, we teach them how to fit it into their meal plan.
Well, good.
And then, of course, we focus on getting them more active.
So some positive changes.
Yeah, managing their stress can help, because stress tends to make blood sugars go up.
Wow. And are there websites that are useful?
Oh, definitely. There's the American Diabetes Association website. So many people have asked me, well, you know, I just don't know what to cook. I wish I had a recipe book that, you know, give me ideas on what to cook. They have all kinds of healthy recipes on the American Diabetes Association website.
And they're probably free.
Oh, yeah.
Free.
Yeah. And anything you want to know about diabetes and how to help your loved one, you can find out on that site.
Oh, that's a great site, and it's the one you can trust, because all of their stuff is research-based, and it's in the back.
And there's a couple others, too.
Well, I have a question here. So we're sitting around in the evening, and I just see him eating the wrong things. What can I do? And we told me I can't be a nag.
No.
I really like nagging.
Well, one thing I think that helps is cooking a healthy dinner so that
Not hungry.
they're not as hungry in the evening when they're sitting and watching TV, etc.
Okay.
Balanced meal. And encourage them to get out and go for a walk
So
with
we had a
you.
walk in the evening, and we had a good dinner. And maybe, just maybe, if I didn't buy all of those foods, I've done that with my own husband. The other day he said, "Where are the cookies?" And I go, "Didn't buy any."
Oh, I've been guilty of hiding
Hiding them.
sometimes.
Shh, don't tell anybody. But bottom line is, if things are in my house, we just naturally go to eat it. It's
That's right.
just who we are as humans. The
That's
things
right.
that are most flavorful to us, that have the extra salts and the extra fats and the extra sugars, make me happiest for a moment. And so I'm going to gravitate to them if they're there. But if they're
Right.
not there, maybe I could do that a little better.
Right. And, you know, it's okay if they want to have a little treat, maybe in the evening, but have something healthy or low in carbs so
To go
that,
with that.
Right.
Now, how can I encourage them to, plate size and eat a little less? I know my brother-in-law's had some issues, but his plate's awfully full. How do you kind of help people to go from the idea that when I go out to eat at the local smorgasbord, where you go through line and you can fill your dish however many times for a great price, more is less better. Or you go to these restaurants that just seem to have huge portions. I know we're way out of portion line. So you go home and you put this little pitiful half cup of mashed potatoes on their dish and they go, "Ooh, that's all there is."
Well, smaller plates does help psychologically. We feel like we have a full plate, but of course we have less food. Another thing that really helps is dishing up the plates of food in the kitchen and then bringing them to the table. Or if you do put food on the table and people are dishing up their own food, don't leave it sitting there. Don't.
Oh, so we don't have to have seconds.
No, as soon as everybody's had what they really need to eat, let's clear the table off and get those dishes back to the kitchen and that food back into the fridge.
And that brings up something else that I've read that I think is just really important. And that is, I know where I live and I know the lifestyle I've had, and I can suck up a plate of food in 5 minutes.
Uh-oh.
And simply by sitting around the table as a family, gathering about, having a meal with some pleasant conversation,
Exactly.
slows us down.
Exactly.
So, you would recommend no eating in front of the television?
Oh yeah, nothing, don't eat in front of the television because we forget what we're doing.
We're not even savoring our food.
And what kind of foods do you usually eat in front of the television?
Shh. I was supposed to ask that question. But I also read a really good thing, and I'm trying this in my own life, and I don't have diabetes, but if you put your colorful plate, if you can eat the first fourth of your plate in 10 minutes, which is painfully slow for me, then the next fourth of your plate in the next 5 minutes, and the next fourth of your plate in the next 5 minutes. Now you've spent how many minutes eating? 20? There still is a fourth of your plate left. But it takes 20 minutes for your stomach to get up there to your brain and go, yoo-hoo, yoo-hoo.
That's right.
I'm happy with how much we've eaten.
That's right.
So if I eat in less than 20 minutes, I eat probably way more than I need.
Exactly.
Wow.
Put your fork down between each bite. That's another thing that
That
people
would be a
do.
habit to start, wouldn't it?
Maybe talk a little in between.
What type of food should I have available in my pantry for my family that's coming over now that are struggling with diabetes? Or maybe they're not struggling, but I want to help them.
Well, you could have some whole grain crackers, whole grains, of course, have all that extra fiber. Have some fresh fruit available. Nuts are a good source of protein. Of course, we don't want to overdo it on nuts, but there's so much research out there showing the benefits of a small handful of nuts.
And nuts do kind of fill you up for a little while.
Exactly.
They really do. So have some good healthy snacks around, plant a good vegetable variety.
Yes, all those non-starchy vegetables, awesome.
Here's a good question. Well, I think it maybe is easy to answer. Why don't they just do what they're supposed to do?
Well, have you ever tried checking your blood sugar several times a day, watching everything you eat,
It's a little
remembering
boring,
to
doesn't it?
take your diabetes care self-care is hard work.
It is, isn't it? And I don't know, maybe you don't feel sick, but maybe you mentally think, oh, I'm a sick person.
Well, actually, a lot of people who have diabetes don't feel sick, and so that's why they don't feel always motivated to take care of themselves. But you know, they deal with so many things, and it's a daily
Something you have to
proposition.
keep up to. And it isn't, I mean, you do have to actually stick yourself, and you do actually have to do all of this, and you have to take your medicines on time, and you're always worrying about your food.
And then, of course, they might get low blood sugar, and they have to make sure they have something available to treat that when they're out away from
Right.
home. There's just so many things they have to be concerned about. And of course, they should not be driving if their blood sugar's low.
Yeah, that causes
So
problems too,
that
doesn't it? 'Cause
definitely.
You mentioned earlier when we were talking that diabetics sometimes get depressed.
They
how
do.
How would I know that was happening in my loved one, and what kind of tools or what could I do about that?
Well, there are different depression scales. You know, if they go to somebody that's qualified, an expert that can help administer, or even diabetes educators can give them a small questionnaire that will give you an idea if there is some clinical depression going on there.
So I would think that upon getting a diagnosis like this and understanding that my whole life is going to change, and my whole life is not in a framework anymore of the wellness I had thought of myself. I was this powerful person, I could do everything, I took care of everything, and now suddenly I realize that I am dependent on medicine, I'm dependent on my physician, I have to watch what I eat, I have to worry about my entire lifespan, which I probably should have been doing all along, but we kind of take our bodies for granted, don't we? That it seems logical that there might be at least a time of depression.
Right. It's very common in people who have diabetes.
Do you find your patients, when their spouse says, I think there's some depression happening here, do you find them very receptive to that?
No,
Are they willing to
no.
go and search? They're not.
You know, that's one coping mechanism. They may have some definite symptoms of depression, but you know, they're always trying to bring themselves up, and it's just one of the hardest things for a person to accept in most cases.
We've had a session already here on depression on the show, and I was very pleased because we talked one thing that you can do is get your loved one to their primary care provider.
Exactly.
And have that physician say, you know, I think you need to go find a licensed therapist to help you. Because you want to have a qualified person help you with depression.
Right.
You don't want somebody muddling in the middle of this that isn't quite.
And
know
if
what
their
they're doing.
primary physician recommends that, they're probably more likely to do it than if you do it.
Well, yes, as a wife, we're kind of left on the man. Now I have a good question. You know, I know what my family member, my loved one, my spouse has to eat. Do I have to eat the same thing?
Oh, of course.
I was hoping you'd say something different. I was wanting my bonbons too.
No. If you really love that family member, you're going to do everything you can to be supportive. You're going, and, you know, think of all the health benefits to your own self. We know that if we eat healthy, exercise, keep our weight down, those of us that don't have diabetes can reduce our risk of getting type 2 diabetes by 58%.
58? Oh, this is
50.
almost 60.
Yes.
Anything over 50% matters to me. That's the cup is half
A
full.
large research study,
Has proven that if I just take care of myself,
you can reduce your risk of getting diabetes.
and if someone really sticks to their diabetes regimen, I think you just kind of alluded to that a while ago, they don't have to have symptoms. I don't say they don't have to have symptoms.
Complications.
They don't have to have complications, so you can reverse your risk
That's
for
right.
complications by sticking with the program and doing the things that are useful to you.
Those that have diabetes can reduce or prevent complications just by taking good care of themselves.
Well, that's
They can live a full, healthy life.
So I can live till I'm old, and I don't have to get
That's
holes
right.
in my feet,
I know
and I don't
somebody
have
that's-
kidney disease.
Yeah, I know someone that's got had diabetes for 60 years, and she doesn't have any complications.
Well, that's important.
Yeah,
I want to live to
so-
60 years and have no complications of anything either. And especially once you've had a diagnosis. So
That's right.
that's really encouraging.
Yeah.
And does she feel like she's lived a restricted life? Or does she feel like
got
she's
used
lived
to
well?
it. She got used to it, and she's had surrounding yourselves with a good support network. When you go to family gatherings where you know there's going to be a lot
the big
of
potluck?
yeah, where you know there's going to be lots of foods that probably aren't the best for you. Some things you can do is, you know, offer to bring a healthy dish that you can
Sure.
have, and you know, maybe some of the other family members will enjoy that with you.
And they might be surprised how much they like it.
Exactly.
Well, that sounds great. So my family member is one of the unlucky ones who's dealing with diabetes, and things aren't going so well. What other things can I do to support them?
Love them.
Just love them.
Yeah. It's amazing if we just show love and show that we truly care about them. Their attitude towards dealing with this could possibly totally change.
Well, I think you're right. I think when somebody's treasured and valued and loved, we raise ourselves in the esteem of our own eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And when I feel that I'm of value and worth to you, then I want to stay around for you.
Exactly.
And I want to be here with you. And so doing some things that bring me back to center, knowing that this is something my family is facing together.
It's a family disease.
It's a family affair. It's a family disease. All of us together can select better foods. We can select better methods. We can encourage our loved one. We can get out there and walk with them. We can eat what they're eating. We can make a real difference for them.
And set some goals for yourself, things, trips that you want to take together, family events that, you know, are going to be really exciting.
And so together you make these goals and you make these plans and you've met this, and then you together can celebrate without food.
Exactly.
Oh wow, that would be amazing.
Find ways to reward yourself without food.
Well, that's great. And I'm just glad that you've shared this with us today, and I know that it's going to matter a lot to people out there who are struggling with family members who have these kind of things going on with them. You had a book here.
I do. Go ahead. Okay.
I think this is a great book, 5 colors for your health.
Right, and basically what it is encouraging you to eat 5 colorful fruits and vegetables every day.
Great. Well, as you get ready to go shopping, I want you to remember that you have an opportunity to have 5 great fruits and vegetables a day, and take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Love the ones you're living with. Cook with them and enjoy them. Until we meet again on Kitchen Conversations. I'll see you then.